During the brutal dry stretch at Addo Elephant Park in South Africa, the ground lay split, with only a scattering of shallow waterholes left to glimmer. An older elephant moved with a limp, his right forefoot swollen by a large, painful abscess. The ache made walking hard for him, leaving him short on forage and unable to drink water each day. In time, he fell behind the herd, a stray spirit, adrift in the middle of the bare, wind-chilled, empty plains. His eyes looked dim, ears sagging, as though burdened by years of quiet despair and bone-deep weariness. He picked a shallow puddle to lie beside, now and then dipping his trunk to lift tiny mouthfuls of water. A hot wind smelling of dust slid by and wrapped his big, worn frame like a rough shawl. The old giant had nearly lost hope of finding his family in that unforgiving place. Then a small black bird with a hooked beak fluttered in toward his aching foot. Curious, the bird studied the angry swelling on the big foot with very careful attention. It edged nearer, cocked its head a couple of times, then softly set its beak against the swollen spot. All at once it jabbed hard. The tight skin split, and yellow fluid spilled out onto the dirt below. The bull flinched, then noticed the stabbing pain ease, a wave of relief washing through him. He tested a small step. The pressure under his foot eased, though a low, throbbing ache still lingered. The little bird pecked again a few times. More fluid drained away, and the tightness kept easing. The elephant lifted his trunk in a quiet thank you, and the bird gave a soft chirp, then left. That night he slept longer than usual, believing the trouble was over at last. But within a few days, the sore puffed up and reckoned again, and the hurt began spreading all around his foot there. A rotten smell drifted off it. Yellow pus seeped out, making standing or walking in a usual way impossible. He could only lie still by the puddle, taking sips to make it through the day. The pain grew so strong it left him unable to move for hours. His breathing turned fast, each heavy thump echoing across the wide, sun-baked plain around him. There, eyes half shut, lashes flickering, as if fending off crushing tiredness. Still, he no longer had strength to search for food, his body growing leaner and thinner with each day. Now and then he would dip his trunk into the puddle, take a few tiny sips, then drop it back down onto the ground again. The sun beat on his back, worsening his state, with heat haze lifting off the cracked ground. Flies and gnats clustered on the wound, making everything even more miserable and sore. Even when he flapped his ears to shoo them off, he was helpless against the sheer swarm of biting insects all around. The pool's water slowly vanished, leaving just a thin smear of mud clinging to the bottom down there. He waited in silence as though hoping some miracle might break through the gloom. That break arrived one morning as gold light began to spill across the open grass. 2 rangers, Jack Turner and Ben Carter, were checking waterholes across the reserve. From far off they spotted a great gray shape lying still beside the water's rim. When they drew near, they realized it was a grown elephant with a bad injury on his foot. The worn eyes and heavy breaths told them he had been hurting for days. Jack knelt to check his pulse and warmth, while Ben grabbed the radio and called in an emergency quickly. They hurried over with clean water, pouring some into his trunk so he could manage a few precious sips. Ben stretched a heavy rope to mark the spot, keeping other wildlife back and avoiding added risk. Jack rested a hand on the elephant's trunk, and spoke kindly to him, in a steady, low voice. From far away, the special truck's engine rumbled, a sign the rescue crew was approaching now. When the truck rolled up, the team used tarps and ropes together, working to help lift the elephant. They loaded the elephant into the special rig, doing their best to keep him comfortable there. Ben sat beside the elephant's head, watching his breaths and overall condition all the way back toward the ranger station there. At the station, a veterinarian arrived right away to carry out a full exam. Tests showed the abscess hadn't reached the bone, but careful cleaning and close watchfulness were still absolutely necessary for his safety. The care team rinsed away the pus, trimmed dead tissue, and wrapped it gently with sterile gauze. They gave antibiotics and pain medicine right away to make the elephant comfortable. He was moved into a big shelter with straw on the floor and a roof overhead to shield him from the sun there. They set a big hay bin and a tank of fresh water right beside him so he could eat and drink with ease there. At night, staff changed dressings and checked temperature often to prevent trouble. After a couple of days, his breathing settled and his eyes showed a light again, a fresh hope. By day 3, the wound started drying. The swelling was much smaller, and that bad odor had finally faded away completely. Jack and Ben smiled while they watched him try to lift his feet slowly. 1 week later, he could stand and calmly chew hay inside the shelter like before again. The vets upped his feed, adding more fruit and vegetables to help him rebuild strength more quickly. Each morning, Ben led him to a small yard for sunshine, a routine that helped steady his health. He loved the cool spray across his head and back, his ears twitching a little with pleasure. The hair on his ears and around his legs took on shine again, and the skin over the wound slowly healed. With each day, his steps grew steadier, no longer stumbling way before. After a month, the sore was closed up completely, with no signs of infection left. It was time to send him back to the wild. Jack and Ben readied the special truck and gently guided the elephant up the wooden ramp. On the way out to the plain, he kept lifting his trunk, breathing in the old, familiar wind there. The truck door swung and he stepped down slowly, drawing in the smell of dry grass and damp soil. Late sun poured everywhere, gleaming across his wrinkled hide, still full of life. He rumbled a deep call as if to say farewell and thank the folks who had helped. With steady steps into the distance, he pressed deep prints into the soft, forgiving earth. Jack and Ben stood watching with eyes full of hope and pride. In their hearts, the joy was not only saving one animal, but also guarding a piece of wild land. They knew that even if paths never crossed again, the tie between people and animals would endure still. The elephant moved on, his shape shrinking against the wide grasslands of Addo Elephant National Park. There, a band of black birds wheeled above, as though guiding him back toward freedom again. In the distance, shadows of other elephants appeared, drifting slowly in his direction. He paused a moment, lifted his trunk, and then quickened his pace toward the herd. Their calls rang out to one another, breaking the quiet of the afternoon. In that moment, he wasn't an outsider anymore, but part of a big, waiting family there. Jack and Ben headed back to the station carrying a settled kind of happiness. The sun slipped under the horizon, leaving an orange and pink glow. The tale of the elephant and his bird helper would be retold for years around evening fires by friends. And out there, in the wilds, an elephant found freedom again, thanks to human kindness.